Hi, I'm Doug Ross, Politics and History Editor for the Times Media Company.
I'm Crista Zivanovic, News and Projects Editor at the Times.
And it is a late night for election results. We're still waiting at 11 o'clock. We're still waiting for results from Lake County, the final results, but we do have final results from just about everywhere else on the planet.
Well, and to Lake's credit, we have 93% of the votes in, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, and that's been for about the last 90 minutes or so.
Yes.
So sooner or later somebody will wake up and turn the final crank and get the rest of the numbers out. But we do have some huge news. As everybody will know by the time you see this video, of course, Ted Cruz got trumped as well as trounced. And
he was eliminated. Sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. It's late.
Ouch. It's a little harsh, but he was pretty harshly treated by Indiana voters, all I have to say. So of course Cruz suspended his campaign. Now we saw him, actually I saw him just 2 days ago on Sunday evening in LaPorte, and they were planning on packing that Civic Auditorium, and frankly there was a lot of space left to put people in. Now I talked to people going into that, what they thought of Cruz, and the couple that was like right ahead of me in line from Walkerton, he was saying that that he was, took a little time to settle on Cruz, that he wasn't 100% on him, but at least he wasn't Trump. And then his wife, I asked, well, what did, what were you thinking, and what if Trump gets the nomination? She says, I'm not even sure I'll vote. I can't imagine voting for Trump. So that's going to be the real test will be to see how well the Republicans can unify the party now that it's been split so far apart. And frankly, Donald Trump has redefined what it means to be a Republican.
Yeah, I know that Senator McCain said he would support Donald Trump, but one of McCain's top aides in 2008 said he would rather vote for Hillary. He just doesn't believe that Donald Trump represents the real party. So.
Right. So this was, all eyes were on Indiana. All eyes around the world, actually.
Yes.
I actually had about 2 minutes of fame on an Israeli news channel. So recording that video earlier, hopefully I didn't sound like a complete idiot. But anyway, I was able to give a Hoosier, not Indianan, but a Hoosier perspective on what it means to be in this crazy political cycle. On the Democratic side, we saw Bernie Sanders everywhere, it seemed like everywhere but Lake County. Yep. Bernie Sanders really had
in Porter County, he had a real strong showing.
Oh, right, absolutely. I mean, I was looking at the numbers in Porter County, and Bernie really soundly defeated Hillary Clinton. It was 13,344 votes for Bernie to 9,466 for Hillary. So that's 58% to 41%, basically. And a half. So that's a pretty strong lead. Now, to me, what that says is there are a lot of people that are fed up with the Democratic Party
Politics as usual.
Politics as usual,
Party.
and there are a lot of people that are fed up with the way the political system period is going. And so a lot of economics and Bernie Sanders' message, so that says a lot.
I think it's pretty safe to say, I think everyone would agree that Trump and Bernie winning in Indiana and elsewhere the way they have are two different sides of the same coin. It's the same kind of disaffection. It just depends on whether you skew far right or far left. But it does seem to be disaffected voters and this populism rising that has held true in Indiana as well.
And that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in the governor's race in Indiana. I looked and was trying to crunch the numbers, and it looked like in Porter County, again, 38% of the voters who voted in the Republican race did not vote in the governor's race. Now, a lot of them probably would not have voted for Pence because he's unopposed in that, and so they just skip on to the next opposed race. But I think a lot of them are frankly fed up with the social conservative views of Pence and how that's played out.
It could very well be.
Particularly women are upset with the legislation that he just signed, regarding abortion this time.
Restricting abortion. Well, and I think like even among Republicans or declared Republicans in Indiana, 57% do not approve of the RFRA vote, and
That being the Religious Freedom Restoration Act.
and there's a majority who also are opposed to the new abortion restriction that he approved, that he signed. So,
And we've been hearing for quite a while that the Indiana General Assembly is about 10 years behind the rest of the country when it comes, or the rest of the state rather, when it comes to public opinion. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out in this race. Now, John Gregg, frankly, hasn't been very visible lately. It's kind of a Where's Waldo game with him, except his mustache isn't as bushy as it was 4 years ago when he ran and came close to beating Pence, but didn't. It will be interesting to see this time there's a libertarian running against Pence and Gregg, and so it'll be interesting to see how Rex Bell, the libertarian, affects the voter.
and if John Gregg gets out there sooner, because last year a lot of people said if there were a couple more weeks left in the election, he might have come closer to Pence or even beating him. So if he, puts himself out there sooner, maybe he'll have a chance. We'll see. It might get interesting.
It might. Now Pence still did statewide get more votes than John Gregg, but a lot can happen between now and the November 8th election. And frankly, who knows where the Indiana economy will be. I think as many people are holding
That's a good point.
holding the governor accountable for the economy as they're holding the president. So that'll be interesting to see how that turns out. There were some local races in Lake County that were pretty interesting. The judges race, for example.
The judges race was a huge upset. The McDermotts outspent Judge Paris, I think only by maybe $10,000 or $15,000, but she pretty much swept the race. So.
And as I recall, she had more than half of the vote in
More than half, yeah.
and so and there were other opponents in that race, so that made a big difference. It seems to me that Judge Paris got about 34%.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So that's a pretty resounding defeat. So that was a big change.
And other races were pretty predicted and predictable. Eddie Melton, it looks like, will succeed Earlene Rogers, and probably not have a strong Republican opponent in the fall. For the Senate District 2 race, House District 3 race, Earl Harris Jr. Will succeed his mother and father to probably be representative.
Right, and so that becomes a dynasty. He's the third member of the family to hold that, and that was a post that his father held for years and years and years. Held it until he died, actually, while he was still in office. And
there were a few surprises in Porter County.
There were some close ones. Jim Biggs is the Republican who won. Now he's on the county council right now, but he's running for North District Commissioner to replace John Evans, who's retiring. John Evans handpicked Jeff Trout as his successor, and Trout came close, and it was a three-way race. John Cannon is the Portage City Councilman who was in that race. Didn't do nearly as well as the other two, but Jim Biggs will go on the ballot in the fall. Now, what's interesting about that is Biggs and Evans have really gone at each other in past years and ran against each other. So it's interesting to see that Evans is endorsement of trout really didn't hold up this time. So it speaks a lot for change in Porter County, I think. We saw in the Democratic side, there was a interesting race for State House District 4, that being Pamela Mishler-Fish versus Jesse Harper. Jesse's father, everybody knows, is Bob Harper, who's a former commissioner, and so that was an interesting to watch because of that. But Fish
And she has her
didn't
work
win.
cut out for her now.
She
going
does.
Against Rep Soliday, but she still did a credible campaign and won some good endorsements. And
Right, so that'll be an interesting one in the fall. Now Ed Soliday, of course, is the one who proposed the tax increase that would have paid for long-term funding
Right.
for road repairs, and there are people that are complaining about the $25 wheel tax. The communities now are able to put through. Portage has a hearing on that too, coming up fast.
Crown Point
did,
and
a few others.
yeah.
And so speaking of somebody who just put $300 and more than $300 into suspension work on my car,
Yeah.
that $25 isn't that bad.
Well, and I think that there's still going to need to be more tax talk for a long-term solution.
So that will be interesting to see how that comes out.